is Hazuki Shimono. She's a PhD candidate in religious studies at the University of Tokyo, and she is currently working on her PhD dissertation on Francis Bacon's religious ideas.
Hi, thank you for your introduction. I would like to first thank Hiro for inviting me to speak here, and also Claire for letting me know about this project, first of all. My topic is on the mythic interpretation and imagination in Francis Bacon. Can you hear me?
It's better be closer.
Like that. Okay, I'd like to sit down, please, okay? Francis Bacon is a well-known figure in the history of early modern science, and he produced a collection called De Sapientia Veterum, the Old People's Wisdom, which consists of 31 Greek myths. Bacon presented his own interpretation of each myth by narrating their essential points. Bacon's style of narration, namely mythic interpretation, was not anything novel at the time. During the Renaissance period, there were a number of similar mythological interpretations in circulation. For example, Boccaccio wrote Genealogy of the Gods, a compilation of myths layered with multiple interpretations. And Mythologiae by Nathalie Conti was also popular, as many as 30 editions, if not more, of Mythologiae were printed to satisfy demand. Thus, we should ask, what was so special about Bacon's mythological collection? An analysis of Bacon's collection shows that he used myths as allegorical tools to deliver his own philosophical message. To illustrate this point, I will focus on his interpretation of the well-known tale of Prometheus. I would also like to talk about the faculty of imagination, how Bacon understood it in relation to the faculty of reason. I'm also interested in how Bacon believed the faculty of imagination had been used in religious matters. My analysis of Bacon's use of allegory and imagination will show how much Bacon was in fact aware of the power of myths in communicating his own message of philosophy. In the introductory chapter of De Sapientia Veterum, Bacon investigates the nature of mythic narration, how it serves to disguise and veil the meaning, and at the same time how it clears and throws light upon the subject. In addition to these rhetorical aspects of myth, Bacon also discovers religious significance in mythic narrations. In fact, when Bacon considers the original source of myth, he suspects that myths were not created by humanity alone, since mythical tales tell crazy, inhuman stories. The religious meaning Bacon found in mythic narrations was not only limited to the myth's supposed no-human origin, but also included the way humans relate to these stories. Bacon refers to mythical narrations as gentle whispers, veils, shadows, and holy relics. Moreover, he describes myths as a device that allows human beings to connect with God. Bacon claims that because religion delights in such veils and shadows that are embedded in myths, taking mythology away would be to almost interdict or ban all communion between divinity and humanity. Now, what does he mean when he talks about communion between divinity and humanity? Did he think that humans communicate with deities and vice versa in some ways? We encounter certain instances where there is an interesting interplay between divinity and humanity in Bacon's work. For example, in the first book of Advancement of Learning, where Bacon attempts to show how the dignity of knowledge has been revealed in the realm of divinity, he employs the metaphor of play in describing the relationship between the divine majesty and human beings. Here Bacon cites Solomon's petition for wisdom and God's answer to Solomon from the book of Proverbs. He says, the glory of God is to conceal things, but the glory of the king is to find it out, as if, according to the innocent play of children, the divine majesty took delight to hide sports to the end to have them found out, as if kings could not obtain a greater honor than to be God's playfellow in that game. This passage shows a rather playful notion of relationship between king and God, who are engaged in a game of hide and seek. God is not imagined as an almighty absolute power which must be obeyed, but rather as a playful intellectual advisor engaged with a human in revealing his knowledge. Go back here. Following the divine proof of the dignity of knowledge, Bacon proceeds to talk about human proof. The first example he refers to is apotheosis, a practice of deification, a practice of the heathen, he says, in which certain people were venerated and adored like a god as highest honor. Bacon writes that heroes like Hercules and Romulus would receive titles such as worthies or demigods as recognition of their contributions in civil affairs. However, the inventors and authors of new arts, endowments, and commodities for men's life were held in even greater esteem and consecrated among gods themselves. Ceres, Bacchus, Mercurius, and Apollo were considered all examples of this kind of deification. Their contributions were considered permanent and universal, like the benefits of heaven, thus they were deified, in other words, consecrated among gods. Here we have a glimpse of how Bacon perceived divinity in relation to humanity, namely that divinity is an honor bestowed upon two mythic characters who made great contribution to humankind. There's also another instance where Bacon refers to human possibility that humans become divine. In a work called Confession of Faith, Bacon writes about his belief in God's creation of the world and humans and humanity's fall from grace and redemption made possible by Jesus Christ. But Bacon also touches upon something extra, something that goes beyond saving humanity from the original sin. Bacon writes that the incarnation of Christ had fulfilled the whole counsel of God, accomplished the whole work of redemption and restitution of man, to a state superior to the angels. So it's not just a recovery of original sin, but then men are taken to a state that are beyond or superior to angels. In these examples, it seems as though, for Bacon, the domain of humanity and divinity are intertwined and interlaced. This gives human beings the opportunity to imagine a life through which they can actually become divine if they engage in right actions. Bacon seems to have held an optimistic view of human life, believed that humanity could recover from the original sin and thereby recover human dominion through human action. Having so far noted Bacon's view of humanity and divinity and his tendency to blur the line between the two, now I would like to bring your attention to Bacon's interpretation of the myth of Prometheus, as it appears in the work De Sapientia Veterum. Here we see Bacon's philosophy through his tactful, allegorical interpretation. Bacon presents the story of Prometheus as symbolizing the state of man and provides a unique interpretation that glorifies the presence of humanity in this world and how, in fact, this world revolves around them. Moreover, Bacon argues that human beings should work to improve themselves. How was he able to interpret the myth of Prometheus in such a way? When Bacon's Prometheus made man, he mixed bits and pieces from other animals into human bodies. Prometheus stole fire from heaven and presented to mankind because he wanted to become the amplifier and enlarger of human race. He not human because he made them. However, men were far from being grateful. They conspired together and impeached Prometheus and his invention, the fire, before Jupiter. Jupiter, who disliked Prometheus, was delighted by this and presented men with a gift of perpetual youth, while chained Prometheus to a column on Mount Caucasus and had an eagle tear his liver every day as a punishment. This is a ground on which Bacon espouses his unique interpretation and argues for the centrality of humankind in this world. He claims the primary message of Promethean parable is that men are indeed the center of the world, and that everything will go astray if not for their existence. In his mind, the whole world works in service of man, and there's nothing he does not merit. And to him, all things seem to be going about man's business and not their own. Very pagan-like, in a way. In the myth, humans were not grateful toward Prometheus, but instead bore accusation before Jupiter, both against Prometheus and against fire. This human action had invited additional gift from Jupiter, that of perpetual youth. Bacon indeed asks if such crime of ingratitude deserves approbation or reward. This question remains actually affirmative and interposes another layer of interpretation. In his opinion, the human reaction to Prometheus is justified. While Prometheus was supposed to be the creator of mankind and provider of fire, he did not deserve to be appreciated or congratulated. It is noteworthy that in justifying this storyline, Bacon introduces additional layer of meaning, which praises humanity for efforts made for improvement and progress. He claims that human reaction was only a reflection of excellent condition of mind, and those who are critical and are dissatisfied with the current state of human nature and art are praiseworthy because they seek out for new discoveries and inventions, while those who are satisfied with what they already have, and those who see no need for anything new, must be denounced. Here, Bacon's interpretation of the myth clearly propagates his own philosophy. Humans are only justified when they are dissatisfied with what they already possess or know. In fact, they are encouraged to be more curious and eager to improve their arts and sciences. Through his interpretation of the Promethean myth, Bacon is able to promote his own program for the expansion of human knowledge. As it is apparent in the title of his prominent work, called The Dignity and Advancement of Learning, Bacon's chief concern was to augment the realm of human knowledge beyond what was already known then. I would like to argue here that Bacon succeeded in dignifying his own program for the expansion of knowledge by writing a new interpretation of the Promethean myth, a myth which supports man's central place in this world and calls for the further expansion of human efforts. According to Bacon, Prometheus clearly signifies providence, and special work of providence was the creation and constitution of man. Bacon places humankind optimistically in providential framework of God, and thereby imagines man's development of arts and sciences as a necessary course. Bacon's interpretation is understandable if we consider in light of Bacon's tendency to blur the line between humanity and divinity, and to raise humanity to the level of divinity. Now I would like to talk briefly about Bacon's understanding of imagination and its relationship to allegories and metaphors. Bacon has a very analytical view on the faculty of imagination. It is one of the three principal parts of human understanding, along with memory and reason. While memory is responsible for the learning of history and reason for philosophy, imagination is a driver of poesy. Bacon claims that in matter of faith and religion, we raise our imagination above reason, and that is why religion sought access to the mind by similitudes, by parables, visions, and dreams. In his understanding, poesy as driven by imagination was effective in choreographing the divine, in a way. He claims that poesy has always been thought to have divine quality because it raises and erects the mind by submitting the show of things to the desire of the mind. At the same time, Bacon is quite critical of the ways in which imagination is actually applied. For example, he cites the school of Paracelsus, and the disciples of pretended natural magic have exalted the power of imagination, so much so that they have regarded it analogous to the power of miracle working faith. He is also critical of Roman Catholic practice in utilizing devotional images and idols. Bacon, while acknowledging their tactful application in imagination in inciting devotion in ceremonies, nonetheless remains quite critical, claiming that it is against the first edict of Protestant principle that you're justified by God only through your labor to get your own food. I'd like to ask here, why was he so critical of using imagination to encourage religious practice when he had used his imagination to create a unique interpretation of myth in promotion of his own philosophy? I would like to say that as an answer to that contradiction, I would like to say that he had a very strategic understanding of the use of imagination. Bacon, in fact, explains that imagination functions as, sorry, sorry about that. Okay, Bacon, in fact, explains that the imagination functions as agent when he discusses the faculties of the mind. Bacon believes that before reason makes a judgment, the senses are employed by the imagination. And before a decision can be acted upon, reason is employed by the imagination. So according to that understanding, judgments and actions that are made possible by reason are both governed by the imagination. In his opinion, the role of imagination is not limited to that of messenger, but it has its own authority, its power. While mind and body relationship is described with a metaphor of relationship between lord and slave, the relationship between reason and imagination is described in a metaphor of magistrate and free citizens. Usually, of course, reason has imagination under control, but imagination has a good chance to win the power over reason and rule as well. Bacon believed that imagination did have great power in ruling the minds of people, and that was the reason why religion had employed parables and allegories appealing to the human faculty of imagination. He was clearly aware of the power of human imagination in making associations and deriving new meanings from mythical narratives. Just as imagination was deemed to play a significant role in depicting the realm of divinity, it was also vested an important task by Bacon to construe and justify a new layer of meaning upon the original narration. So, to summarize, in the beginning of this presentation, I have referred to the religious significance Bacon saw in mythological narrations, how they were deemed to be a device through which humanity communicates with divinity. We also saw how Bacon tended to blur the line between the two and review his idea of divinity as something high, yet approachable for humanity through intellectual or theological endeavors, or by making contributions with universal appeals. In the interpretation of Promethean myth, we saw how Bacon indeed merged divinity and humanity in glorifying man as a central driving force of his world, and encouraging their further improvement of nature. Bacon dignifies man's existence and justifies their expansion as being part of God's potential design. His interpretation of Promethean myth testifies how he delivers his message, testifies his awareness in the power of imagination, and his belief that imagination is effective in devising or depicting the realm of divinity. So Bacon has strategically employed imagination in delivering his own anthropocentric message through the field of allegory.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. My question is about the first point of your conclusion. Thank you. I think this kind of idea about the ambiguous distinction between humanity and divinity was very dangerous for the Christian ideas, and Bacon played the central, very central role in the English, in the politics in England in that period. So, how how did he think about this very dangerous kind of thing?
Okay. Thank you for your question. I think he was very much aware of the danger he would be faced if he were to publicly announce that humans actually can become God, like that. In the, I think the first example that I have shown, that I have mentioned, was a metaphor of play between God and human, and it's only really a metaphor, and it's a metaphor used in the search for, like, when he talks about how knowledge is revealed from God to human. So it's only a metaphor, and also the second example that I have cited of the deification of how humans actually, well, the Greek gods, deities, were actually humans. That's also, yeah, well, he specifically mentions that it is a practice among the people, and it's a forbidden, he says that it's a forbidden fruit for the Christians. So he's very aware of that too. And the third example that I have cited, it's about the possibility for humans to become deified. It's not exactly deified. He just says that through redemption, the people or humanity is brought to the level of or above angels. That's Selma. Sorry. So yeah, and then this work that where he cites about this the last point is it was published after his death in 1642. He died in 1626, as you know. So yeah, I have picked these points specifically to argue my point about his anthropocentric view. But then he also talks about, he's very aware of the distinction or clear distinction between humanity and divinity. And he does say that, for example, the investigation of nature using the faculty of reason, is no way able to know the mystery of God or the will of God. So in a way, he does keep that sort of distinction clear as well in other parts. So yeah, I just picked out these points for the argument for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I really like it a lot. I have, I don't know if this is actually a question or a observation, but probably I think that have you take a look to Vasilovich, comment to the Protagoras, to the Plato's dialogue, because there he's talking about Prometheus in a very interesting way. He's saying that he's the ruler of the rational soul, of the rational soul, and besides that he doesn't talk about him. I don't know if this is the case in Bacon or not, but he doesn't talk about him as a god or a semi-god, but he talks about him as a demon. So I think that probably, it could be a way to understand why Bacon is using this kind of myths as something philosophical. I think that it could be, I don't know, because Darwin knows much more about Ficino. That's more about Ficino than I am. But I think it could be some kind of tradition there.
Okay. I haven't actually referred to that word just yet, but I know that he
Leto Polgar spoken about its point. According to my standard, my understanding, Italian Renaissance philosophy, Francis Bacon is typically a philosopher in the age of Italian Renaissance. But Bacon respects imaginative power. Hence, it shows there's imaginative power. Why does Bacon respect this imaginativa?
Yeah, he does not mention this imaginativa itself, but then he talks about imagination when he well, yeah, this part that he talks about imagination and reason, I mean, he's really just talking about the faculty of mind, how our mind works. And then he also made like a genealogy of human understanding based on the human epistemic ability. And imagination was a driver for poetics, and reason was philosophy, driver philosophy, and memory was the driver or like the principle of history. So he talks about that, but also I think he probably employed some text, a theory of rhetorical tradition, like about teaching rhetorics probably, because I'm sure like imagination played a huge role in the rhetorical tradition. So, yeah.
Other questions?
Kind of related to the earlier point that Mr. Schroeder was making, the relationship between metaphor and politics, and especially during this time, as you have said earlier, that he had to be careful of what he makes public. And I'm actually wondering, like, were there some sort of theological critique, or that priests and Christian theologians making a point about his questionable attempt to reread some of classically un-Christian way of things, like you're saying that divinization or that men's centrality in the universe. Well, that he's rereading Genesis. He writes about Genesis and he kind of changes that a little bit. Did people notice some of these subtle changes that he has made, and were people making comments on that and criticizing him?
I'm personally not aware of how his contemporaries were aware of his, yeah. I'm not too sure of what the police were thinking of him at the time. But I mean, he was part of the British, English regime in a way, and he was also responsible in a way for the governance of the Church of England. So, I mean, he was in a position to be careful. And I guess maybe I don't know, yeah, maybe he didn't have to face that sort of prison because he was so in the power of the political power. Yeah. Yeah, but then it's an interesting point. Maybe I should search for examples. Yeah, there is a scholar that points out about the relative freedom he enjoyed, actually, because of the nature of the Anglican Church or Church of England. Yeah, it was really just controlled by his people, like himself in a way.
Here for the last question.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is, according to you, to which extent Bacon is original, comparing to his Renaissance forerunners in interpretation of Greek and Roman deities. This question is to follow Orpheus and follow up Orpheus and Kent.
Okay. Yeah, how I've referred to like Boccaccio's work, and I've also referred to Natalie Conti's work on mythological interpretations. But I think in terms of his originality in the interpretation of Prometheus myth, he's very original. I think it's very unique that he places such significance on the centrality of human humanity. And Natalie Conti does not say anything like that. Or Boccaccio, mentions nothing about that. They will more or less talk about like what the earlier authors have said about the myth. And so it's not. I mean, I think he's indebted to them in a way that he uses this kind of mythic narration as a device. I mean, just the fact that he produced this kind of work, I think in a way he's been affected by other people, contemporaries. But yeah,
Thank you.
quite unique.
Let's.
Oh, I love your teacher.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, probably you're running late. But yes, I wanted to ask about this too because, well, as you might know, Aeschylus, the Greek tragedian, in the tragedy of Prometheus, links Prometheus with human progress quite famously. And my memory isn't too clear on this, but Lucretius talks about Lucretius, the Roman poet, in De Rerum Natura talks about human progress a lot. And I don't remember if he mentions Prometheus, but well, I mean, there's the ancient notion of man's centrality in the world and human progress and so forth. So, well, just some question and possibly a suggestion.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think I haven't read them firsthand, but I think Prometheus is traditionally connected with the creation of mankind, and he's one of the deities that are closest to humankind in a way. And I think I'm aware that they have vision about progress, man's progress themselves. So maybe Bacon had excavated that again this period to because it was in line with